All right. Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. I appreciate you coming out on location here. It's not the easiest spot to get to, so thanks for that. This week the city was made aware of two apartment properties in Sioux Falls owned by the same company that received a notice that one of their utilities was at risk of being turned off because the landlord and the property owner, for that matter, is behind on bill payments. And that puts obviously many residents in jeopardy of being without heat. So as soon as we are made aware of something like that, which we were, we immediately followed up with the property manager and the owner, who assured the city they were working to resolve the issue, which they did. So in this specific situation, we're not able to legally really step in until a utility is shut off and a tenant notifies us that their heat is shut off. So despite the fact that we're able to rattle the cage of this property manager and ensure this didn't happen, I'm here today and stepping in because I believe how this specific property management company continues to operate is morally and ethically wrong, and quite frankly, I'm tired of it. Any claims that the city is ignoring these tenants or these sorts of landlords is just plain false. In fact, it's quite the opposite. This owner and their management company is taking up more taxpayer resources than they should, with this press conference just being one example. Owning and managing rental homes and rental properties in our city, it comes with a responsibility, right? And we expect it to be done properly. You're managing people's lives. So we will not tolerate owners and management companies that take advantage of our residents. We hold all property managers to a high standard in Sioux Falls. We hold all property owners to a high standard in Sioux Falls. This is why a year ago I did multiple media interviews to put a spotlight on this issue. So since then, communication with the city team and this specific property owner and manager, it's improved. Our team actually meets with them on a monthly basis. It's the only property owner and manager in the whole city that we do that with, on a monthly basis. And our communication with them actually happens outside of that as well when that needs to happen. So currently, we have less than 10 open code enforcement cases with this company compared to a year ago when that number was about 35 to 40 at any given time. So it doesn't mean that all these properties are in tip-top shape, believe me. But what it does mean is that the code enforcement process that we have in place, it's working, right? But what we need is we need tenants to continue to reach out to the city when appropriate to report issues. It's very, very important. So this is all coming to light again publicly because of the utility notices that I talked about earlier, but also because I'm hearing from other elected officials in other cities regarding this property owner. I had a call this week with a city councilor from Omaha asking, how are you dealing with some of these challenges in Sioux Falls? We're having some of the same challenges in Omaha. You can Google Dickinson, North Dakota. You can Google Rapid City, South Dakota, and see some of the same issues with this property manager and property owner. So we will continue to hold them accountable, but along with anyone else in our city. So we have processes in place that we need to follow legally and by ordinance in order to assure accountability. That's really important. So we have over 33,000 rental units in the city of Sioux Falls, 33,000. So rental properties are a vital part of the health of our growing community. As we grow by 5,000 to 6,000 people a year, rental units are a critical part of that growth. This property owner alone, they own and manage about 2,000 of those units in our city. But imagine if anytime there was a problem or people were mad or upset and they called my office and they tweeted at me and they say, shut it down, we would have hundreds, thousands of people without housing. And so our process works to create compliance. That's our ultimate goal, is to create compliance. We want safe, secure housing for people through the code compliance process. So we expect all property owners and their management companies in our city to follow city ordinances and requirements. But one thing we don't regulate is we don't regulate morals and ethics. We don't. That's on the property managers and the property owners. So this is all just a real delicate balance between the tenants' rights, their rights to safety and sanitary housing, and the owner's property rights. It's a very delicate balance. So I hope the property owners and the managers in this community are hearing this message loud and clear this morning. And I want to ask Kevin Smith with our Planning and Development Services Department to talk about our process for how you can submit code issues to the city. This is really important. Tweeting at the mayor or sending him mean Facebook messages is not the best way to do it. We have a process, and I'd like to invite Kevin up to talk through that. So Kevin?
Thanks, Mayor. Kevin Smith, Assistant Director of Planning and Development Services, and that's a good lead-in. Safe, sanitary, secure housing. That is our number one goal, and we strive to achieve compliance. And code enforcement is not a department. It is a number of departments who come together depending what the situation is. So that may be police, fire, health, public works, planning and development services with our property maintenance team, as well as the health department. So all of these departments coordinate, we communicate on a regular basis when there are issues for us to resolve. And then just to give you some numbers, in 2024, our team responded to over 5,400 cases. And in 90% of those cases, whatever the problem was, it was corrected by the responsible party after one notice from the city. We didn't have to drag them through the court system. We didn't have to issue multiple citations. 90% of the time we get compliance very quickly. In some cases, in the more complicated cases, or if we have someone who's just not going to be compliant, then we involve the city attorney's office, because they're a very valuable member of the code enforcement team as well. But in order for us to inspect those cases, and this is really important, I think, especially with the situation that we're talking about today, from the tenant's perspective, it's so important for our team to be contacted by those individuals personally. If you're a tenant and you have a problem, you have a concern in your specific rental property, what we really need you to do is first document the situation. If it's leaking pipes, if it's broken windows, broken doors, document those things, date them, and check your lease. And then talk to your property manager or owner and give them the opportunity to respond and resolve the issue. If that doesn't work, you can certainly contact the property maintenance team. We will schedule time to come out and perform an inspection, but what we can't act on is anecdotal stories, hearsay evidence. I know someone who this. If we don't hear from the tenant, if we don't hear from the leaseholder, we can't just walk into apartment buildings and start knocking on doors saying, hey, can we take a look, because we heard from so-and-so that you might have a problem in here. That is counterproductive. And also, it infringes on the rights of the property owner, of the property manager. So I would say if there is a code violation, we do work with property managers, property owners, and give them the opportunity to make the correction. But if they don't, we have multiple methods of enforcement as well, up to and including sending them on to the city attorney's office. But it's so important, again, if you have a problem in a rental unit, if you are the tenant, go to the property manager first. If that doesn't work, then come to property maintenance, and we'll take it from there and sort out which departments might need to be involved. We encourage tenants to visit siouxfalls.org/tenant. There's a great amount of information there that's available if you have questions about what are your rights and responsibilities as a tenant. And we also have links to the Human Relations page, which is part of the city government as well. And our Human Relations team deals with discrimination and harassment cases. There's also the state of South Dakota, and we've got links to their information as well. And before I turn it back to the mayor, I'll just remind everybody, tenants have rights and responsibilities, property owners have rights and responsibilities. One of our key functions is to be that objective voice when it comes to enforcement. So we want a level playing field for everyone, but we need both sides, both tenants and property managers, property owners, to do their part as well. So with that, I'll turn it back to the mayor, and we'll answer questions.
Yeah, so recap, if you are the tenant, contact your property manager if there's a challenge. If there's an issue, if you don't hear from them and they don't respond, then you contact the city. We will open a case and we will get involved. If you're the cousin of the tenant, can't help you. We need the tenant to contact us, okay? That's very, very important. And so with that, we would certainly take any questions that you may have on property rights. Yes?
Beth Horton,
Yeah.
Dakota News Now. What do you want to say to the tenants who are afraid of retaliation for reporting an issue?
First off, retaliation for reporting an issue would have legal consequences. So if we would hear that does in fact happen, we have an office, a human relations office, that would look into that and would pursue that. So you do not have to worry about that.
So if you're a tenant and you're afraid of retaliation, would you still go to the property manager first, or would you go to the city?
Same process. Always go to your property manager first, right?
I have another question too, and you've explained this to me before, but sometimes I hear from tenants and they think if they report one issue, the city will come in and inspect, and then anything that's wrong will be written up. But what you've explained to
speak to
me
that.
is that each possible violation needs to be reported when reported to the city, because you can't go in and just inspect everything, because you have to do that to every property owner in the city, and there just isn't the manpower. Do I have that correct, and can you restate that for me?
The more specific the tenant is in the case of, I have a problem with this, then we'll respond appropriately. But if we have a complaint in one unit of a 24 unit complex, we're typically going to deal with that one specific issue. If there are more tenants, if there are more issues that we're made aware of, certainly we'll follow up with all of those. But again, we really need specifics, Beth, when it comes to problems. And one of the first questions Justin Christensen and his team are going to ask is going to be, have you talked to your property manager about this yet? Because one way or another, we're going to get back to that owner, that property manager anyway. And as the mayor pointed out, there are certain rights that tenants have, and protection from retaliation is absolutely one of them. And please don't be afraid to let us know, but don't do it after you've left. We've had communications from people who've said, well, I don't live there anymore, but this is going on there. We need to know in the moment so we can follow up as quickly as possible. And we're just trying to gain compliance, trying to be objective so people have safe, secure, and sanitary housing. But certainly the tenants have to do their part as well.
Can we talk about some things that are code violations versus what are not code violations? I looked into city code a little bit. I know infestation is a problem, and that's been a problem with these companies.
Sure. There's common things: broken windows, broken doors, broken locks, leaking pipes, leaking roofs, real property maintenance, property management kinds of issues. In the winter, we don't see it today, but in the winter it's sidewalk snow removal. In the summer it's nuisance vegetation, things being overgrown. One of the things we do get contacted about is my landlord has put this fee onto my lease now. Now that is not something that the city really deals with. That is a consumer affairs issue, and we'd recommend that they go through the Attorney General's office, and they may have to pursue legal matters on their own. So we can't manage your lease arrangements and any extra fees and things like that. It's not that we're not sensitive to those, but we enforce the International Property Maintenance Code. So physical issues, physical problems, not having heat, for example, those are the kinds of things we typically respond to.
Are there any outstanding code violations, and how do you guys go about resolving them?
As the mayor said, we have a handful of open cases with this management company right now, but across, pardon me?
Do you have a number?
I think it's less than 10 at the moment, which again, last year with over 5,400 cases across the city, and we had issued over 900 and some citations, we follow up on every complaint. We performed, I think last year, over 10,000 inspections total. So sometimes we have to come back, multiple times to see that the corrections are being made. Right now, typically we hear heat calls in the winter. In the summer, we hear about AC units not working. And then depending, if we had a heavy rainstorm, find out if there's leaking roofs and things like that.
And that's what it's part of the reason we're here, is just reinforcing venting on Facebook, tweeting out pictures. That's not an effective way to resolve issues with your property manager. They follow that process, because when we say we have 10 outstanding cases with someone who owns 2,000 properties, you're thinking, wow, seems like it would be a lot more, because they're not being reported. If they are, people just go to Facebook and they say, look at this, can you believe that? That's not going to do anything. Justin's not scouring Facebook to look for work to do today. So we have to follow the process that we've really clearly outlined. That is how we will ensure accountability for landlords that aren't doing their job.
And how many
Go ahead. Sorry, Lauren, you're gonna have to yell that out a little louder. It's got the Smithfield traffic's coming in here.
So today are you sort of urging the property manager and owner to do more? What is your message for them?
My message for them is not to do more, to do better, probably. Just to do better. So I mentioned it earlier, there's a responsibility when you are going to be in an industry where you're dealing with people's lives. Okay? Housing is the most basic human right. And when you get into a space where you are caring for people's most basic right, which is housing, there is a responsibility that comes with that. And we hold a high standard to that. And so my message to this property manager, owner, anyone, is that we want to hold you accountable, and we will hold you accountable if you're not meeting the requirements that we have as a community, as a city, in ordinance. And like I said, there's some things that are ethical and moral that we think should be done, and there's things that are legally required that need to be done. So shape up, do better.
Mayor, this has been going on a long time. The trash is over spewing the whole place. People that should be with maintenance should be able to see it, but when it gets ignored, I think sometimes people just get so tired of they said stuff about it, but then not much gets done. That's common sense.
I know it may seem tiring, but if you see the dumpster overflowing and it hasn't been taken care of, let us know. Let your property manager know, and if they don't take care of it, let us know. We will take care of it. And it's the best we can do. It's just we have to know that it's happening, and then we can fix it. Yeah.
Has the company or the property manager commented on this to the city, like the most recent
most recently, they let us know that, hey, crisis averted, we got the heat back on. And so our response is thank you, but it shouldn't get to that point because a Mid-American is not just looking to turn off gas. When it gets to that point, there have been multiple steps along the way, multiple notices that have gotten to that point. So it just makes me nervous that if that's happening here, what properties might be next. So
Mayor, with those notices, if I know that you said that they mentioned things were fixed, but should things turn off on the 3rd, what is the next step for the city?
in that case, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Well, anytime there's a unit that's without heat, our first step is to contact the owner, property manager, to see if they're aware of it first. And once we make them aware, then we will continue to reinspect to make sure they're working to get the heat restored in the case of the winter. And our teams go out. Those 10,000 inspections I spoke of, that's a lot of them. I shouldn't say a lot of them, but that contributes to that overall number. Is they will stay at those properties with the maintenance teams as long or as often as we need to make sure that the repairs are being made. And certainly in the winter time, heat is a lifeline service, so we can't. Those are issues we can't see stretch out for weeks on end, right? If it's a part that needs to be ordered, something physical like that, sure, that may take time, but then the owner's got to make some other arrangements for their tenants. How many code enforcement? We have a team of 5 in property maintenance. There's more in health, but again, as I said earlier, we involve the police department, the fire department, health, attorneys, public works. So I would say on any given day, there's dozens that are available. But our team of property maintenance inspectors, 4 plus the manager, plus the health department inspectors, that they perform thousands of inspections a year.
So does the city see a need for more staffing on your guys' end?
I would say we're able to keep up right now, but part of it honestly today is that because it hasn't been snowing and we're not out dealing with sidewalk snow removal complaints, that at least our team and others are able to focus on other things. But certainly there have been times where if we get inundated with snow like we were 2 years ago, that we'll bring in teams from zoning or whoever else to assist with it. So the code enforcement team comes and goes in terms of the number of individuals based on what is the problem we're trying to address that day, up to and including the city attorney's office.
So then does each code officer have a zone, or how does that work?
Our property maintenance inspectors have their own quadrant of the community, and that's partly because we want the neighborhoods to get to know, who your contact is, and for our property maintenance inspectors to have a better sense of really what's going on in their specific area.
Any other questions from anyone else? Yeah.
You talked about the difference between legally you can do something and something that's more morally unethical. Can you give me some examples of stuff that you've heard about, stuff you're aware about that's morally unethical?
Well, I guess for me personally, if I was caring for 2,000 people in this community and that was my career and my job, it would be very hard for me to know some of the conditions that we know some of these properties are in. So legally, code-wise, are they in okay condition? Are they passing muster? Yes, but it'd be challenging for me. That's just.
Do you know specifics of things that are ethically unmoral?
No, there's no. I'm not going to throw shade at any person or any specific, organization or company. We haven't even mentioned a company today. But what we have said is there's a big responsibility that comes when you're dealing with people's lives in housing.
I've got another question. We were made aware of a tenant from a different property management company that froze to death in December. Is there any ongoing investigation as to whether or not that landlord had anything to do with the heat not being available? Because we were told that the only heat on that property was a space heater, and yet the space heater didn't. and that there was frozen pipes and that type of thing. Is there anything you can speak to?
I don't know that specific case. It's probably you probably have to follow up individually on that. That's a very specific example. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. Just one or two more questions and we'll wrap it
Yeah.
up.
I'm wondering what the timeline is for
Who are you with, ma'am?
I'm Ann Knudsen from East River Legal Services. So we get a lot of applicants. We provide full legal services
Yeah.
to low compliance and
Okay.
qualified. And I'm wondering what the city's timeline or what the goal is as far as responding to those code enforcement complaints once they're received, and also if documentation is required in order for the city to go out to the property to do inspection.
On any given day, I'd say it's if it's not the next day, it's within 48 hours. We're out responding to a complaint case. In terms of follow up and follow through, that's going to take time. But as far as having documentation, it helps us so that when our team goes out, if you can send us something in advance, email a photograph or something, just to help prepare the inspection staff for what they're going to be seeing, it's just going to speed up the process. So we document every case, even if, and there have been, I think each year, there are a few hundred times our teams will go out and there's no violation. It is maybe a problem between the landlord and the tenant, but it's not an actual code violation. We still document all of those as well. So 24, 48 hours, generally we can be out on site and start the code case from there. And again, 90% of those 5,400 cases get resolved, one contact with a responsible party, and they take care of it. It's unfortunately, the extremely non-compliant individuals sometimes, and that extends to owner-occupieds as well. We're, not to ignore those cases, but it depends on the individual. It depends on the complexity of the case, how quickly they get resolved.
Anyone else? All right. Last question.
I know you mentioned, not wanting to leave 2,000 people without a place to go to, but in the extreme, what does it look like if the city would have to shut down on you? Or I guess what does that look like?
That's why shutting down a property is really a nuclear option, because let's say you have to close down a property like the one behind me. For some reason, you have displaced dozens of families, right? And then we have a whole nother set of issues that we have to deal with. So back to the earlier point, getting them in compliance is way, way, way less problematic than the problem we'd have to deal with if we had to shut this place down. So if we would get to that point, we would not do that without a plan B, right? We would not just hang a door tag on here and close this down without a plan for families. That's something I know they're dealing with in Omaha right now, with a building that they nearly had to do that with because of a bad fire suppression system by a property management company that's doing some work here in Sioux Falls. So we don't want to have to do that, believe me, and we're not close to having to do that. So, but if that would ever happen, believe me, we would have a plan first before we'd ever take that route. And what we talk about a lot in our city is what? Affordable housing. And we have to realize that there are landlords and property managers that provide affordable housing. The one behind me provides a lot of affordable housing, right? And so they are filling a gap in the community that's very, very needed. But there is responsibility that comes with providing affordable housing as well. So thanks for coming out today. We appreciate your coverage.